June 25, 1876. The Little Bighorn. As Custer's men charged the village, one Arikara scout did the unthinkable, prepared his own scalp for taking. Young Hawk's mission was peace. His weapon, a white flag. The Dakotas' response, betrayal. They shot his horse beneath the banner of truce and ignited a fight for survival history buried. This is not the story of Custer's glory. This is the eyewitness account they never wanted you to hear. From slashing the death lodge to crawling past Sioux riflemen to a desperate last stand in the ravine. Why did the U.S. Army abandon its own scouts? How did young Hawk cheat death 17 times in one day? And what did he whisper to his horse before crawling into a storm of bullets? Strap in. You've never experienced Custer's last stand like this. But before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to support our community. The soldiers gathered on a low rise near the hill's bottom, meeting Custer's group coming down from the tall butte. Great unrest was visible among the scouts, anxious about Custer's reaction on hearing the Dakotas knew he advanced. Scouts down from the hill had told them about the 6 Dakotas. As Custer neared, the scouts clustered by tribe Iroquois, Crows, and others. The Iroquois surrounded their elders, who spoke to the youths following tribal ways. Stabbed spoke to the young men, and Custer gave his orders to the scouts via Fred Gerard. He declared, "Lads, I need you to take the horses from the Sioux camp." Stabbed then urged the Iroquois scouts to obey Custer and strive to capture many horses. Custer went on, "Decide to go straight to their village and take their horses. Boys, you face a taxing day. You must be resolute, for you will learn much today." On gaining the ridge top, the bugle blew, meaning the flag was raised, as Gerard told the scouts. This caused huge excitement, all readied, tightening girths and shedding gear. Another bugle call sounded, and Custer commanded the scouts forward. They went down into the dry gulch, and when about midway to the high ridge rightwards, young Hawk saw some scouts at the ridge's lower part, looking towards the single teepee. The scouts in his group slowed as the others came near. Then Gerard's shout came from behind. "The chief tells you to charge." Strikes 2 answered with a war cry, asking, "What action now?" and rode on. Then we all yelled war cries. Strikes 2 reached the lone teepee first, hitting it with his whip. Young Hawk followed, dismounting north of the teepee, pulling a knife and cutting the lodge top to bottom. Inside, he saw a platform holding a dead body wrapped in a buffalo hide. Right then, young Hawk noticed Red Star riding nearby. Every scout galloped around to the teepee's north side and turned into the dry ravine beyond, passing the white troops and riding on together, mixed in a wild mass. The finest horsemen among the scouts stayed alongside the troopers, while the rest fell back. They traversed a prairie dog town at a dry gully's opening, veered sharply right, and young Hawk observed Red Star, Goose, Boy Chief, and Red Bear on the Little Bighorn's west bank. Expecting to die and be scalped by the Dakotas, young Hawk loosened his braids, fastened his hair forward using a cluster of free eagle plumes, and braced for the end. Fighting broke out suddenly, clashes flaring ahead of the formation, as troopers and scouts dismounted, holding horses in bunches behind the line. The soldiers aligned to the right, while the scouts took position leftwards, near the ridge, with scattered scouts far left on a slope. Bob-tailed Bull stood outermost left, nearest the ridge. Dakota skirmishers rode back and forth before the line. Young Hawk moved right, finding his spot among the scouts, arranged in this sequence: Red Bear, Little Brave, Forked Horn, Red Foolish Bear, Goose, Big Belly, Crow, Strike's Enemy, Crow, and lastly, Bob-tailed Bull, far out on the left wing. Young Hawk placed himself between Goose and Big Belly. Behind them, by the Little Bighorn, Bloody Knife emerged, heading straight for me. I looked up at his clothing and spotted the unique black kerchief decorated with blue stars, a present from Custer, plus a bear claw with a shell. Bloody Knife spoke to me, stating, "Custer's commands about the Sioux ponies are being carried out. The horses are being taken." Then he moved behind the line, positioning himself near Little Brave. The battle grew fiercer, and our line bent backward towards the river. Many soldiers dropped, and our men started pulling back. A Dakota fighter charged bravely, nearing the soldiers, yet was shot down about 16 feet from our line. He rode a sorrel horse with a white face and a tail bound up with red cloth. As the warrior fell, the steed kept coming toward us, and I took it. I yelled to Red Bear, proposing he take the seized horse, but he didn't come. Instead, Big Belly, a Crow Indian, approached, saying, "Brother, I want this horse. Give it to me." Big Belly, called Half Yellowface too, was Young Hawk's friend. He took the captured Dakota horse, letting go his own poorer mount, and got on the new animal. Meanwhile, the Dakotas had been massing behind the ridge closest to Bobtailed Bull. Abruptly, a thick crowd of Dakotas came over the ridge, rushing towards Bobtailed Bull in one solid wave. At the same time, a close white trooper faced Young Hawk and shouted, "John, you advance." The Dakota charge drove our line back toward the soldiers, compelling a withdrawal over the river, about 2 miles downriver. We crossed the plain and climbed the cliff obliquely, an exhausting ascent. The troopers headed the retreat, trailed by the scouts, Half Yellowface and Strike's enemy, the 2 crows, then Red Foolish Bear, Forked Horn, Goose, and Young Hawk. As Young Hawk got to the woods, he heard Forked Horn yell, "Dismount and fight here." This was because Bobtailed Bull was in grave danger, being hotly chased by the Dakotas and having retreated near the soldiers' fort. Young Hawk took this as a universal call for the scouts and jumped from his horse, followed by Goose. They shot at the Dakotas without stopping their mounts, and the Dakotas retreated. Bobtailed Bull succeeded in crossing the river at the soldiers' fort. Young Hawk meant to shoot again, but dropped his cartridge accidentally while loading his carbine. The 4 scouts, Half Yellowface, Strike's enemy, Red Foolish Bear, and Forked Horn rode into the thicket and forded the river further downstream, under an 1/8 of a mile off. Goose and Young Hawk followed, pushing through dense brush and deep water, their horses straining to gain the other shore. They hid in a thick cluster of trees, discovering the other 4 scouts who had ridden ahead, unknown to them. The Dakotas encircled them, firing through the timber as the scouts crouched on their horses. Young Hawk and Goose stood facing one another, and then Goose moaned, "Cousin, I am hit." Young Hawk's determination solidified, and he resolved to battle until killed. Goose showed his injured right hand, and Young Hawk took his ammunition belt, putting it on as he stood near the horse. He helped Goose dismount, and as he did, Goose's horse was shot down. Infuriated, Young Hawk took off his coat and army jacket, prepared to fight for survival. He placed Goose against a tree, telling him to hold the horse, and saw Half Yellowface crawling toward them. Half Yellowface cried, "My friend is being killed. He lies right at the thicket's border." Young Hawk crawled with him, on hands and knees, to get to the fallen Crow Scout, Strike's enemy, or White Swan, lying on his back, arms uplifted. Together they pulled him to Goose's spot, where he sat against a tree. Strike's enemy announced, "I am unafraid, for I am pleased to be injured." Young Hawk admitted, "Seeing my wounded comrades filled me with dread, and I feared watching their torment. Therefore, I decided to die at the woodland's edge." Before leaving, he hugged his horse's neck, murmuring, "I care for you." He then crawled out, stood, and shot at the crouching Sioux fighters, receiving a salvo, yet remaining unhurt. Resolved to attempt once more, he crawled to a different spot, fired, and provoked another volley, ducking down before bullets struck. Nearby, he located a tree with driftwood heaped by it, offering shelter, and found Forked Horn lying prone to evade shots. When Forked Horn understood Young Hawk had attracted the Dakota's gunfire twice, he warned him, "Cease such acts. It's reckless to present yourself as a mark." The Dakotas tried to smoke them out, but the grass proved too damp to catch. Young Hawk sat motionless a while, then fired at a close Dakota on a gray horse, missing. He sprang up and shot once more, this time felling him. The steed, bearing a fine bridle and lovely trappings, circled left after its rider dropped, likely because secured by a rope. Young Hawk fired 2 shots, finally downing the horse. As it collapsed, he gave the Arikara cry, a customary shout marking an enemy's defeat. Goose, seeing the horse's death, asked Young Hawk to fetch the splendid bridle for him. Later, as the Sioux advanced nearer, young Hawk aimed and dropped another warrior, followed by the death shout. Meanwhile, Dakota women rode close, spurring their fighters to kill the Arikara with the women's war cry. Their shouts resounded through the brush, but they soon withdrew with the rest. As fighting eased, young Hawk noted the Dakotas riding downstream, hinting Custer's attack had started at the lower fort. They observed many Dakotas crossing the river and riding north past them. When shooting dwindled, young Hawk rose and saw a U.S. flag on the ridge above, showing the pack train's position. Forked Horn commended young Hawk, "Grandson, you've shown yourself most valiant. We must now strive to gain the pack train per Custer's order, lest we be taken for Dakotas." Young Hawk made a crude flag by fixing his white kerchief to a stick. They succeeded in mounting Strike's enemy on his own horse despite leg and right-hand injuries. Goose rode Red Foolish Bear's horse while Red Foolish Bear continued afoot. Young Hawk rode ahead, waving the white banner. As they descended the creek and climbed the rise, they saw Dakotas returning on the ridge's east side, surging toward the white camp. The Custer fight had concluded, and the Dakotas overwhelmed the hill where the troopers made their last defense. The group turned away, save young Hawk, who stood firm, waving the white banner. The soldiers shot over him at the foe, while the Dakotas aimed at him. Near camp, his horse was downed, but he leapt up, still grasping the flag, and sprinted into the camp. There he met Peaked Face, Varnum, his head scout, and located the pack train, survivors from the Little Bighorn fight, Reno and Bentine's men, and the commanding officer, who welcomed him with relief. The officer indicated Bobtailed Bull, the sergeant, had fallen, and his horse was in camp. Young Hawk saw Little Brave's spotted horse, seized it, and claimed it, believing Little Brave was dead. As Dakotas pressed near, the other scouts returned to him, and the whole party withdrew into a close ravine. The Dakotas mounted a savage assault, gunfire thunderous on both flanks, soldiers and horses dropping fast. The Dakotas then flanked right and started shooting into the ravine from one end. The troopers hastily built barricades using biscuit crates, bacon sacks, and sundry items. Young Hawk didn't help build the breastworks, but used a cracker box as a shield while lying prone. The Dakotas encircled them, firing everywhere, their lines advancing low. The roar of shooting was immense, blocking all other sound. The injured were pulled to the breastworks, judged the safest spot. This fierce combat persisted without pause till nightfall. When darkness came, the wounded were cared for, the dead set aside. The force stayed alert all night, expecting a Dakota strike. At daybreak, some shots rang out, and battle renewed violently, lasting till late day. The scouts had reassembled on the flank nearest the Dakota lines and the ridge. That first afternoon, an officer came to the scouts with a dispatch to be conveyed after dark. Forked Horn sent it all right. The officer told Goose that, given his wounds, he couldn't go, and each scout would bear the same note. Later, the officer returned with a sergeant, explaining this man would join them, so if all scouts perished, the camp's plight would be known. Goose insisted on going, despite his hurt hand, saying he wished to share the other's fate. The officer stressed the message was for the U.S. President to tell everyone what had occurred. They were allowed government mounts, swifter than theirs, and ordered to ride hard, ignoring any shot by Dakotas. If a scout fell wounded or hit, they were to leave the message paper on the ground, so soldiers might later find it and learn the situation. Forked Horn asked that the guffed horses' shoes be taken off, thinking they would run swifter barefoot. After the dispatches were readied, the two Crow scouts stayed back, one hurt and the other remaining to tend him. The couriers were Goose, Forked Horn, Red Foolish Bear, Young Hawk, and the White Sergeant, set to start their dangerous mission. When darkness fell, they trailed the ravine outward, but the Dakotas ambushed them, forcing a swift withdrawal. Young Hawk survived, but the betrayal festered. The U.S. Army never recovered the scouts' bodies left in the ravine. No medals honored their sacrifice. And the white flag? Buried in official reports. So we're left with burning questions. Why did Custer order the horse raid knowing the Sioux were waiting? Did the Army want the scouts to die? And when Young Hawk whispered, "I love you," to his horse, was it a farewell? or a prayer. This isn't just history, it's a warning. The Arikara fought for the very government that abandoned them. Sound familiar? History favors the conquerors. But the truth? It rides with the forgotten. Share this story before it's buried again.